Hi, good afternoon. This is Damon Scott, Marketing Director here at PVBS. And I want to thank everyone for joining us as we introduce the Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors. Today we are going to be providing an overview of the Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors, which is a fully integrated business management solution. So a little bit before we get started here, we're going to talk about the executive dashboard, the web time and expense system, project setup, including billing setup and managing funds, invoicing and invoice formats, and managing indirect rates, and hopefully we'll catch a few other things as well. Some housekeeping real quick to let you know this webinar is being recorded and it's going to be posted to our PVBS YouTube account later today. So if you have any questions, you can post those into the question section and we'll try to get to those as we go along. If we cannot get to your question, we'll contact you separately. So also later today, you should receive an email invitation to take a post-webinar survey. We would really appreciate any feedback that you can give us because we definitely want to make this a better learning tool for everyone. So please take a few minutes and answer some questions for us. So today's agenda will include a brief introduction about PVBS. And then we're going to jump right into the demonstration of the product. We do have a lot to cover, so we'll try to be as quick and thorough as possible. And again, if you have questions, please ask those as we go along, and we'll try to save a little time at the end as well. So a little bit about PVBS. We are a top-tier Microsoft Business Solutions partner serving only the government contracting market. Our headquarters are just outside Washington, D.C. in Reston, Virginia. It gives us a unique access and insight into the GovCon community. Also, as an experienced leader with over 14 years of success in the government contracting market and an intelligent innovator with Microsoft systems, PVBS is a direct resource for both government contractors and the Microsoft community. So the Microsoft Dynamics for government contractors from PVBS is a rich, robust accounting solution. It's compliant with federal rules and regulations, and Paul will cover that when we get to it. Also provides complete integration and ease of use. So at PVBS, we are driven to develop excellence, providing the most comprehensive solution to our customers and our partnership channels. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our featured presenter, Mr. Paul Skirpsky, our VP of Sales and Marketing. Paul, welcome, and I'll let you take over from here, sir.
All right. Well, thanks, Damon, and good afternoon to everybody. And just to add on to a few things, like Damon mentioned, today's presentation is on Dynamics NAV. We're also a Dynamics AX partner, but today's presentation is on the NAV side. And the one thing I would add is that NAV, the thing that people have realized is it's more than just a financial system. There's a lot to it, and that's why we had an item on there because we serve companies that are not only services companies but also product companies. So this solution is going to handle not only your core back office accounting, project-based professional services work, also contract manufacturing and product distribution. So today's focus is going to be more on the project side of things, but NAV has been around actually for over 25 years now, and I've been working with it since 1999, however long that is. It seems like it was yesterday, but it's coming up on 20 years. And now NAV has over 120,000 companies that are using it, over 4,000 partners like PVBS worldwide. What makes us unique is a couple of the things that Damon talks about is our focus on government contracting, and also the fact that we've enhanced these core Dynamics products around things that government contractors need to run their business. And there's over 2,000 licensed users of NAV worldwide.
2 million.
2 million. Yeah, that's a little different number. Yeah, thanks, Damon. Always good to have Damon looking over my shoulder on those kind of things. So Microsoft, what their model is that they develop solutions that can work for a lot of different industries. And what they strive for is to find partners that can take their solutions the last mile and also provide that industry expertise in terms of how do you set up the solution to meet the needs of that particular industry. And what you can see here is some of the target industries for Dynamics NAV. Over to the left is our organization, PVBS, and our focus really on those companies that are selling to the federal government. It doesn't need to be federal DoD type work. We also work with clients that work with the civilian agencies. So that's a little bit about the partnership. We're involved in Microsoft's TAP program, which is we're a technology advisory partner to them, and also the CFMD, which is certified for Microsoft Dynamics. So a little bit about the roadmap, and today we're going to be showing NAV 2015. NAV 2016 has been released, and we're going through right now to update our version to support 2016. We're going to have a launch event coming up in the next couple months. But what this shows is from that initial instance of Dynamics NAV, which it used to be called Navision, back in '87, you can see over the last 6 years some of the evolution. So with NAV 2009, Microsoft really put their stamp on the product, making it look and feel more like a Microsoft solution. And then you can see the 2013, 2015 releases, what's happened. 2015 is where we're going to focus today, but I want to talk a little bit about 2016 because there's some exciting stuff that we're going to be showing here very shortly. And with 2016, Microsoft has enhanced the workflow engine, making it possible to build more custom workflows, leveraging document management, a lot of integration from a web perspective, leveraging different services that other companies can provide for our clients. And then finally, streamlining, it says UX, which is the interface across all the different options in terms of how you can access the solution. So I was meeting with a client yesterday that's been a customer for about 5 years, and they're working with HHS. That's one of their big clients. His question, the CEO, was around, we want to give additional people the ability to access the system. So more than just the back office people, we want operations, we want executives getting in. And what we talked about was this change that Microsoft is delivering in terms of the different ways to access the solution. So you can see this NAV 2016 overview, and it says Windows and the types of ways you can access the solution. So either from the desktop, which means there's software loaded locally on your machine. There's also a browser option that looks very similar. So you can just use a browser if you don't have the software loaded. They've provided the ability for the tablet app that was in 2015, and now in 2016 that phone experience. Working tightly with other Microsoft products like Office 365, Azure. We talked about the electronic capabilities, workflow, some additional functionality. The other thing you're seeing is Microsoft is going from a release cycle that used to be anywhere from 2 to 4 years to now it's every year new versions are coming out. And what's happening is the engineering improvements has made it easier to move from one version to the next. All right, so that's just a little bit of background on the solution, and we're going to get ready to hop in the software. And I guess, Damon, we got a poll that you're...
Yeah, well,
okay.
Take a quick poll.
Okay.
Talking about Microsoft and the Microsoft products. So just a quick poll. Hopefully it'll show up here in a second. As far as what products does your company, there we go. What Microsoft products does your company use most? And it's only going to allow you to select one. We had a little issue this morning, but just pick the one that your company uses most often. And we just want to kind of get a feel for that real quick.
Okay.
And looks like we're breaking even right across Outlook and Excel. Oh, a lot of folks on Office 365 as well.
Yeah, so we'll just give it I guess another 15 seconds here. I mean, the results look like there's a pretty even mix across Office 365, Outlook, and Excel. Like Damon mentioned, we oftentimes have the multiple selection box, and you'll see people using across all these applications. But I think what we're seeing, Damon, let's go ahead and close that poll, is that we've got people that are leveraging Microsoft already. And I think that's one of the big value propositions, is that how it works with your existing infrastructure. And I've been doing this for over 25 years in terms of systems, and that was always a challenge, is how easily did the new version of a system work with your operating system? How easily did it work with your email system? With Office, or back in the day with Lotus, things didn't even work with that. But that's what people are looking at. I want it to be interoperable. All right. So now we're going to get into the software, and like Damon mentioned, on the right-hand side, GoToMeeting offers, or GoToWebinar offers that ability for you guys to submit some questions. And if they're relevant to the topic, we'll take them as we go through. Otherwise, we'll hold those off to the end. So I'm going to give you about a 10-minute overview of the solution to show, especially for people that haven't seen it before, what are the different elements of the solution and how does it work? So the first thing to note is I'm logged into the rich client or desktop client. The web client is going to look very similar. Obviously, the tablet and the phone client, they operate differently because they give that ability for the touch screen. So I'm logged in as an accounting manager. The idea is based on my role in the organization, I've got a home page designed a certain way. The system also has role-based security, which means as an accounting manager, I could have information on my home screen, but in some companies, the accounting manager might be able to see HR data, and then in other companies, maybe you can't. So as a user of the system, those roles can be tailored so you can identify exactly what someone can see. So the things that are on my home page are activities that I'm responsible for performing or overseeing. In this case, I can see invoices that need to be created, expense reports that need to be reviewed, and also corrections. Each one of these offers me the ability to drill into it to see the details behind it. So that one expense report, when I drill down, it shows me what expense report got submitted and approved, but it hasn't been transferred over to accounting yet. So from there, I would go ahead and select that expense report if I'm going to review it before I go ahead and process it. So when I pull it up, I can see all the details of the projects and tasks, the type of charges, the amounts, and the period that it was charged to. The approval box shows me who is either supposed to approve it or who has already approved it or rejected it. So it's showing me the status of the approval process. And we'll show an expense report later in terms of how you process one. And then finally, up in the top-hand box, you can see attachments. So these would be any receipts associated with it. The idea here is make information readily available to people that are using the system. When I expand my center section, this is a standard chart. So Microsoft's got a handful of charts. As a user, depending on what work I perform in the system, I can place that chart on my home page. So in this case, it's showing my bank balance. So as a lot of our clients are high-growth companies, what they want to see is they want to be able to manage the cash. So whether it's the bank balance, cash flow statements, or using some cash flow forecasting, they're accessing that from inside the system. Integration with Outlook, I'd really call it more of linking. It doesn't replace Outlook, but I can see my Outlook components, mail, calendar, and tasks. I can also email right from within the system. Over on the right-hand side, I'm seeing, you can see it says My Jobs, My Job Queue, and Report Inbox. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. The Job Queue, this is a report scheduler. So it gives me the ability to schedule any report and then identify what type of output. So does it create it in a PDF form, Word, Excel, print it, just process it maybe. These reports can not only be scheduled, they can also be rescheduled from a recurrence perspective. If I look at the recurring tab, this could be the ability to run this report every Monday and show up on my inbox, and maybe it shows up in a PDF form. So the idea is, make reporting more self-service, not only for finance, but also for other users in the organization, operations, purchasing, etc. The top right-hand box, this says My Jobs. So in my demo system, I've got probably 50 different jobs in there. But on my home page, here's the ones that I go into in most every demo. Here are the 5. So I can manage that list, add and subtract to it as necessary. When I double-click one of the jobs, it shows me all the details in terms of how this job was set up. But in addition to how it was set up, I'm also seeing some statistics, or they call it the status box. So this is information about this particular job. In this case, contract and funded value, revenue, AR balance, etc. This information, anytime you see a number with a line underneath of it, means I can drill into it. So I can drill into that AR balance, and it shows me here are all the open entries on this job in terms of where the customer still owes us money. I can select any one of them. I can pull up the original document, which was that original invoice. I could email it right from here. So if I hit my email button, I could send that email off. I could also reprint it. In addition to pulling up the source document, I can also see the status of the AR. I can see original amount, what is remaining, when it was due in terms of when the customer is supposed to pay us. I would see any notes here. So if somebody called them, I would see when they called them and what they said. In this case, this remaining amount is different than the original. If I drill into this, it shows me any type of applications to it. So payments and credits, and then from that, in this case, payment, or cash receipt, I should say, I can navigate and I would see the details of when we recorded that cash receipt, GL impact on the customer ledger, also impact on the bank account ledger. So it's showing me what bank account we deposited that money into. Has it been reconciled or not yet, that bank account, that transaction, I should say. So, from that high level, I can start from, my home page, look at a particular job, continue to drill down into it. So in addition to my jobs, maybe you could have my employees if you're in HR, or my customers, my vendors, etc. One last thing from a general perspective is, over to the left you see the menu bar. As a user, I can tailor that menu bar with what I'd like to see, and I can also set filters on lists. So in my list of jobs, you can see different filters that I set, and I just save those filters. So if I wanted to see all jobs that were cost plus fixed fee, hit this button. Here's my list. I just set a filter, and once I set that filter, I saved that view. Anytime I want to send something to Excel, I can just hit Control-E or use that Send to Excel function, and what it's going to do is it's going to take that data from my screen and send it off. So here's I called it Job CPFF, and this is sent off today at 12:17. If somebody created a new cost type job, cost plus fixed fee job, if I refresh this, it would bring in whatever the latest data is. So that's the idea of the interface. Make it easy for people to find information, make it easy for them to move around and get to what they need to. The last thing from a general perspective inside a NAV is this department list, which shows all the different modules. So for folks that are evaluating the solution, you can see the kind of capabilities that are native to the application, all fully integrated. Everything from financial management, which is going to be your GL and cash management, receivables, payables, fixed assets, etc. Sales order processing, purchase order management. If you're managing any type of products, if you need warehousing or manufacturing, those are available. Today's focus on the webinar is on the project side of the business. So we'll focus over on projects. Also has HR and payroll, and then we integrate. We've got standard integrations with our payroll partners. So some of those key partners are companies like Payroll Networks, ADP, also Paychex. So that gives you a little insight into the interface and the kind of information that we track. In addition to your core back office people and people that are accessing reports, we also have a fully integrated time and expense system. So this is a place that employees are going to enter their time, their expenses. They can also create purchase requisitions and approval of those documents. And as part of today's webinar, we'll go through and we'll enter some data in to show you that process. So the third piece to what we're going to show today is around reporting. So you're going to see every module has its own set of reports. The system also has a standard report writer called SQL Reporting Services, which allows us or our clients to build reports. So some of these standard reports you might want to either have back office people run or give access to the system as a read-only user to run reports. So one of the ones that we'll pull up is we'll pull up the job revenue summary report. So this is going to be a report either by job or by task or contract. I'll run it by task. I could filter for certain periods and projects. I'll go ahead and run it, and we'll just show the kind of detail that's here and how these type of reports work. So it's showing me for this, I've got a sample USPTO project. I've got each of my components. These are each of the tasks, information about current period data. So I've got cost data, profit, revenue, profit percent, year-to-date, inception to date, my percent complete, so that's how much of the billing compared to the funding, and then you can see my funded backlog. And then I've got a total for this job, and then a total for the whole report. In this case, the report is just for one job, so it's the same. In addition to processing reports, whether I schedule them or I run them from here, all of them can export out. So that's one kind of report, reports by module. In addition to those reports by module, oftentimes people want to get to information that maybe, they want to see it more graphically, or they want more of an ad hoc type of reporting. And one of the things that we offer is this ability to process a report via Excel. So these dashboards, these are standard ones that we created, and we've got a cube of data which is pulling information from the financial side of the system, the project side of the system, the time side of the system. So this is some financial elements, so an overview of the business, revenue, profit, and AR, a balance sheet, key metrics over to the right. You're going to see this concept throughout each of the sheets. It's like a filter. Microsoft calls them slicers. So it's a way that I can filter data, to show information in this case for a certain period of time. Income statement, cash flow. For clients that have cost-type contracts, managing your indirect rates becomes a big part of what finance focuses on. And you can see what your rate, how your rates are trending. So monthly, what's in my pool, what's in my base, actual rates, fringe rates, trended over time. So this is a monthly view, and then we've also got a view that shows us current period and year-to-date how our rates are trending. So a set of financial views, some standard dashboards there. There's also a set of project-based views. So income statement by project, by task, labor, cost report, burn rate report. So I'll pull up a couple of these and give you a sense of how they work. So these standard slicers over the right, so they're both periods, projects, and tasks. In this case, this is showing me hours. So each month, how many hours have been processed. The cost report is going to show me, same idea on the filters, for each period, what are the elements of cost over a monthly trended basis. Then finally, that spend report, this brings in both the cost side of the equation and the revenue side of the equation. So I'm seeing, again, for these slicers, revenue monthly, operating expenses, including my indirects that have been allocated to this job, net income or loss, and then also what was funded. So that's how much of the spending or how much the funding got burned, the spent amount. And you can see when I select that cell, there is no value keyed in here. It's just looking at this measure called total spent, filtered by the filters that are set. Up in the header, I see what the total funded value was, the funding we've used, how much funding is left. You can see that burn rate up top. And then based on the average of the last 3 months, system gives me an indication of if we continue at the same pace, how much funding is left. All right, so those are some canned ones. Last thing I'm going to show you is, that data set, that cube of information that's collected. If I wanted to build a query on the fly, how do I do that? So you can see over to the right, I just connected to the data source, which is that SQL Server data cube, and it's showing me my job ledger, which is my historical project data. I've got different measures that are predefined. So how much is our current AR? How much is that 90 days, 60 days, 30 days? What have we billed? So any measure I want to report on, I just drag and drop it into the value section. So if I want to analyze hours, I'll take that as a measure I want to analyze. Maybe I also want to look at billings. What have we billed to customers? I'll put billings in there. Labor spent. So if you remember from that sheet earlier, that spend, that was how much of the funding that got used. So the difference between spent and billing is spent happens as soon as we post labor. Billings only happen at the time that we post the invoice. So this labor spent, as soon as we process labor, we'll see how much, in this case on a T&M, is going to be billed. So we're going to show billings on there, and then I'm going to put two other measures because I had this conversation with a client recently, which was they wanted to see what were the unposted hours. So this is how many hours have been entered in the timesheet that haven't come through yet. And unposted spent is what is that projected billings based on the time that was recorded. I have a filter set over to the left, so I'm looking at, in this case, only T&M projects. How you spend on FFP and CPFF are just different. And then finally, the rows. So we got a bunch of numbers in here, but to make it useful, how do we want to group this stuff? So I'm going to go down to my different job groupings. And let's go ahead and find the job. So contract vehicle. So if you have different contracts, if I drop that in there, here's my 3 contracts, hours that have been recorded through time. You can see we've built 84,000 out of the 166 that's been processed. Maybe I want to see this instead of by contract. Maybe I want to look at it by, who are the customers that we're working with. So I'm going to grab the bill to customer name. So here are my 4 main customers we have T&M work with. If I wanted to see who are the PMs, maybe above or below it, so I'm going to drop the PMs in here. So here are the PMs, the clients they're doing work for. And then maybe underneath the client, we want to see, what was the actual name of the project. So I'm going to grab job description. We'll drop that in there. So this is a way, that you can analyze information on the fly. So this is using that data cube along with Excel. So this is something we did about 4 or 5 years ago. There's some great things with this, but there's some things that this was Microsoft's first idea in terms of how do you get to data. The next evolution is something called Power BI. And this is a rather new product, but with NAV 2016, Microsoft has continued to improve that integration with it. So what Power BI allows for is that same idea. You can build some standard dashboards, and this is just a sample one that Microsoft has. Let me go ahead and just make this a little bit smaller here. So, a standard dashboard, but you also have that same idea. They call it a data set inside of Power BI, but a similar idea to, that pivot table or cube of information. So in this case, if I want to look at some sales data, I can open up my sales cube, and if I want to look at what is the total sales amount, and I look at it by customer, I just select that measure, and now here's my sales by customer. Maybe I want to put another chart next to it and look at sales by salesperson. So here's my salespeople and what they sell. And we'll go ahead and turn this, instead of putting it, we'll put that into a pie chart. And then I'm just going to go ahead and close these. So this is just a simple example, but this is a way that I can build a view of information combining data from different places. And this is also interactive. So if I select one of the salespeople, you can see now it just shows the customers that salesperson is sold to. So you might also want to have projects on here if you're a project-based company. So this is kind of the next evolution, and that was just to give people a sense of, what's coming down the line with Microsoft. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to spend the last part of this webinar is we're going to spend a little time going through a day in the life. But before we do that, I'm going to open up a poll, and I'm interested to see, for the folks on here, actually, what is the accounting system? And we don't have all of them on here, but just an idea of what is the accounting system that you're using today. So, whether folks are using Deltex, CostPoint, GCS Premier, QuickBooks. We see a lot of companies that have moved off of Procast to us, and any other type of solution. So I'm just going to give you guys, we'll give you another 15 seconds here to get the last few votes in. Dan, maybe one of the things we need to do is give out prizes, so that way we can get everyone to vote. But we're at about Right about 80% of the people have voted, and I think it's a good time to close that poll. So what we've got is about 50% of the folks in the call are on one of the Deltek products, a little over 30% on QuickBooks, and the remainder on other. All right, so that gives us a little sense of the type of companies on the call today. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through some of the elements of the job setup and capturing time and expenses. Before I do that, I do want to mention that today is not meant to cover all aspects of the system. It's meant as an introduction, so we're not going to go through all the details. If you want a full presentation or you've got questions, you can let us know through the poll, or through the comments, or also we can contact you after to provide additional details as needed. All right, so now let's get into the meat of things, and I'm going to actually open up a project because all of that information that we were reporting on, without entering it in the system, we can't analyze it. So you're going to see several of those fields that we showed in terms of data points. You're going to see them in terms of the setup here. So what you're looking at is, this is actually how I set up a job. So we touched on the status box before. Now to the left, I'm going to focus on how I set up this job. So in this case, my internal job number, the description of the project. So remember that we put that as one of the things we reported on. Who is the client we're doing the work for? So this is a drop down. So it's pulling from a list of all my customers. So you create the customer one time, and that's how you get consistency of data. So whenever we're doing work for USAID, I've got one customer, and maybe you've got sub agencies within an agency, and we've got ways to handle that. But this is the way you make sure the data is, in essence, standardized across all users. Who is the main contact there? So there's also a contact management system that's standard. So I've got my customer. Here's the contacts that are at that particular customer. Who's the PM, type of contract, period of performance, etc. This Show More Fields button, this is a way that, in terms of the standard interface, it allows a user to show or hide fields that are relevant for them. So if your company doesn't have SCA contracts, I can actually hide that field. So any of these fields in the form, whether they're in the header or they're in the body, they can be hidden. There's also a concept called promoted fields, which means even when I collapse that tab, I want to see who the name of the customer is. But as a user, those decisions yourself. On the posting tab, and of course security defines whether you can or not. I know I've talked to companies that say, you know what, I don't want certain users, or sometimes all users, changing any of the fields they see. They can't delete anything, but they can change the way their interface looks. But some companies love it. Some companies say, I don't want to. I want to have it locked down. The choice is up to you. All right, so that posting tab, this is kind of more of the financial elements of the project. So the department the work is being performed under, these job groups and job account groups, this is a way the system can identify what type of expenses and labor categories are valid. So if there's no travel on this project, you can identify a code that tells the system, when somebody is recording an expense report, don't even let them see, the airfare or hotel. Or maybe they just can't see airfare because it's a local job. Those things are up to you in terms of how you control what folks can see. Revenue and billing formulas. For cost type work, this billing pool group is related to your indirects. So this is the way that somebody can identify in terms of how you're billing the indirects, not the allocation. The allocation is going to be in the cost pool setup that we'll show later. But from a billing perspective, what is your rate structure? So I could have an example where my corporate structure, I apply G&A to travel, but for this job, I can't recover it. So you can have a structure from a billing perspective. The fee percent is telling the system on a cost plus fixed fee, what is the fee we earn for each cost element. And then fee on amount is the ability to earn a fee based on hours versus dollars, and then withholding related to that job. Now below at the contract level, this is showing me information about what is the contract vehicle. So if you have a GSA contract, or some type of other IDIQ or BPA, you can assign that here, and it's a way that the system can, look to see how much work, how much revenue, how much billings under a certain vehicle, because that vehicle is assigned to any job where that vehicle is being used. Any other contracting number, contracting office, paying office related to the work. So the structure you're seeing is you've got a contract, and there's actually a contract card behind this, just so you know, and that contract card has details about that contract vehicle, including if it's a labor type vehicle, you would have resource pricing, so that's your pricing by labor category. If it's a product vehicle, you'd have pricing by product. If I go back to that screen, so my hierarchy is the contract, the job, and then below the job is the WBS, which is a 60-character alphanumeric field. When you expand any of these levels, that WBS looks very similar to how project operates, and what you're seeing is, the structure for this job. So the structure is used for funding, billing, and cost capture. So the first thing is you see the top level. If I recorded funding at this level, the 001 level called Dynamics NAV implementation, if I had funding at this level, what it would mean is any WBS that starts with 001 could use that funding. In my demo example, I have funding at level 2. So this is telling me that this requirements subtask, that 3.9 million can only be used for requirements. These could be mapped to acronyms or CLINs. And in addition, this 3.97 million, this is made up of potentially one or multiple funding mods. So I can drill down into it here if I want. This gets me into the detail. The other way to get there is up in the top section. It says modification detail. So this is the history of mods against this contract. So if I had an additional mod, I would just type in a description, and you could see that, most days I'm not very creative. We'll just say mod number 20. If I put in T, it puts in today's date. And then what was the amount of that mod? So we'll say it was $275,000, both contract and funded value. And then once I accept this, what you're going to see is this 3.9 million and also the 6.9 and 6.8. Those numbers are going to get updated with whatever the latest information is. So I'll say OK here. You can see 17.2 and a little over 17 million. And now when we go back to that WBS, same idea here. We've got 4 million in total contract and funded value. So as a user, you're entering that mod at the detailed level. System rolls it all the way up. So whether I mod, contract amount, funded amount, mod the POP, all those things are available to me. In addition to putting the mod in the system, one of the other things is there's an integration with SharePoint that allows me to put a SharePoint, to associate a document with this record. So if I had the email or I had a document from the customer that was the proof of the mod, we don't want to do unfunded work, you can drag and drop it against the record. What it's going to do is it's going to put it into SharePoint and create the link to here. So it takes it off my local desktop and makes it available to anybody that has access to that page, and also they need access to your general SharePoint site. So just a little something around document management. Over to the right, we see information in terms of, is this a charge code that's available for time entry, expense entry, potentially both, or neither? So this is all the controls for time and expense entry. The setup all happens inside the system. So as a user, you're operating in one place. Membership tells me who can see it. The approval hierarchy tells me how it gets approved, both time, expenses, and requisitions. I'll just show you just one thing on the membership piece, which is in terms of membership, this allows me to create the membership, assign people to that team, and then in addition to the system restricts charging within the period of performance. So in this example, let's just say this 001 task, which was requirements, this was open for all of 2014, but I only want Johnny Walker to see it, for the first 15 days of March. That allows me to restrict it beyond the POP. The system automatically restricts it within whatever the period of performance is with a task. So this task POP, is what's going to tell the system how long somebody can see it for. That period of performance can expire even in the middle of a timesheet period. The system will only let them charge during the period where the period of performance is valid. When it comes to ODCs that get recorded, if someone is creating a purchase order and posting a purchase invoice, you can record that outside the period of performance. It warns you, but we realize sometimes that your ODCs trickle in afterwards. But the labor, we don't want people charging when that task already expired. So that's the model there. As an administrator, as soon as you assign them to the membership, automatically they can see it. As soon as I change the period of performance, it's automatically updated in the timesheets. There is no function I need to run to synchronize it. It happens all in real time. All right, so that's a little bit about the job setup. I'm going to touch on some other elements of jobs here. I'm going to go into job budgeting and forecasting. So the first thing is I have the ability to create unlimited number of budgets. I can budget my different labor elements. So you see an example of here's the folks that I've budgeted labor for. As a user, I budget the labor hours. So I'd go in and enter the hours for a resource that I'm planning to use them for. I can budget 1 month, and there's a copy feature, and this copy feature allows me to copy labor or ODCs, or I guess you could do both, and create a 1-month budget and copy it out over multiple periods. So I can copy it from April and then copy it to maybe May through the end of the year. You can have plan for a labor increase on a certain date or a labor increase on the person's anniversary date. Once I enter the hours, my recalculate function, this calculates two things. It calculates what is the per hour rate for the resource to come up with my total labor cost, and then it's going to apply any associated burdens based on those setups. So that's the way I'm building a budget. So we'll leave it at that level of detail for today. Also import, export from Excel. In addition to creating budgets, you can use that budgeted data. That budgeted data is available on the PSR. It's also available to be used for alerts. So alerts allows me to compare what's been spent. We've talked about that term a couple times, which is spend is looking at things that have been processed through accounting. They might not have been billed yet, but they could have been billed. And then billed means I've actually posted the invoice. I can compare that to that funded value, which we showed when we set up the WBS and we associated funding with a charge code, or I can compare it to that budgeted amount, which would be the piece that I just showed there. And then finally, you can see that that can be at any level of the WBS. And then I'm identifying at what percent do I trigger that alert. So each night, the system looks to see, is this condition, or I should say, has this condition been met? If it has, send an email out. And we're going to send it off to the person that's managing that project, or maybe we send it off to a task manager, optional email addresses. So the idea there is to send that off actually so people can be alerted that something happened there. All right, so that is everything around the job setup. I'm not going to go through each type of job, but I do want to just quickly touch on a T&M job because it's just a lot different than cost type work. So we've got a lot of clients that don't have any cost type work, so I do want to touch on T&M. So on the T&M side, all the tabs, work breakdown structures, all that stuff works the same way. What's different is instead of you billing the government your cost plus associated indirects and then adding that fee on top, all of that is built into your resource price. So a couple things to note. When you look at resource prices, the thing that you're seeing is this is by labor category code. So this example is saying for job 2025, which is the one I'm on, it always knows what job I'm on, and it automatically sets that filter. It's saying that the bill rate for consultant 1 as of January of 2016 is $198 an hour. So I can enter in my multi-year rates, and the system knows based on the specific date that someone entered the time into, what is the right bill rate. This effective date can be any day of the month. It does not need to be the beginning of a year, month, or payroll period. So the system is going to, be able to support mid-month changes and anything related to that. So the next thing is, once I assign the prices, now I'm telling the system who's working under those labor categories, because the person's corporate rate might be different than their project-specific rate. So if I look to see, here are the folks that are consultant 1, and then when I go over to resource prices, if I look at consultant 1, we'll filter that also, and you can see that my bill rates for consultant 1 over time. These rates can either be keyed in, they can be copied in, so I could copy the T&M bill rates from my project schedule. So if you've got a GSA schedule, that's the starting point of your rates, you can copy that in there. I can also send those rates to Excel, and we can do things in Excel. So I could hit Control-E and send this list to Excel. And now maybe things that I might want to do in Excel are, maybe I want to add some future periods. So I could go in and we'll just go to the bottom, and Excel is great at things that are patterns, so I could put in the next 2 years of rates. I could also do something like, I could copy, and maybe I send in the GSA rates, and for the consultant labor category, we're going to offer some percentage off the GSA rates. So I could just say, all right, I'm going to take my standard GSA rate, and we're going to multiply this by 90%. We're going to give 90% of that rate. So I can do things like that, do these calculations offline, and then what I would do is I would copy in the new ones and delete out the old ones. But in our example, we're just doing, we made 2 future years. I can go in here and I'm going to copy those 2 future entries. I'm going to go back into my price setup for this job, and I just right-click, and you can see there's an option called Paste Rows. So Paste Rows allows me to copy and paste, anything from Excel that I'm entering data in NAV in this tabular format like this. So it makes it easy to take data from offline source and put it back in. It still does all the validation to make sure that it's a valid labor category code, valid period, valid amount in this case. So I see people, actually I did this with someone last week. They were making a correction. There was an entry of person's benefits, their holiday carryover from their old system, and it got entered in wrong. And we were able to just export it, make a change, and copy and paste it back in. It was super easy to do. So that's a little bit about T&M work, and now we're going to go over and we're going to go into the time entry side. So on the time entry side, straight browser-based. We did all the setups to tell the system who can see what. Now I'm going to start entering time. But before I enter time, everybody once in a while needs some time off. Whether they're sick or you need a little vacation. First thing I might want to do is look up what is my leave balance. And the different codes are up to you guys. You can define what are your codes and how they're accrued. So I can see I've got 32 hours available to me. And then I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to take off, actually, I'm going to take off Monday. I'm not going to call in sick. I'm going to tell my boss in advance that I can't be in Monday. I need Monday holiday. And then I would just choose the type of code it goes against. So in this case, it's going to use my paid time off. And then I save this. It's going to send an email to my approver. So you can see that that request got submitted. And then if they accept it, it's just going to automatically put it on my timesheet. If they reject it, they've got to put a comment in there. As a user, I can also specify my favorites. So these are the charge codes that I charge to every period. So I don't have to put them on my timesheet. I can only see the ones available to me, but here's the 3 that I charge to every period. So I just put them as favorites. Every time I create a new timesheet, it drops them in for me. And then every period, I just go in and enter my time. If I need to enter a comment, enter it here, click OK, save it. That's the daily process I go through. And then at the end of my payroll period, I hit submit. In this submission, this is my electronic signature. It's going to send off my timesheet for approval. And now the person that approves it can look at it, review, and approve that particular document. On the expense side, similar methodology. Again, you're going to see just what's assigned to you. To create an expense report, I'll just say add new expense report. What was the period that I traveled? So let's just say I was gone the 18th, and I just got back yesterday. What is the description? I traveled to Alabama. Click Save, and now it creates my header for me. And then the actual expenses can be based on per diem or based on expense receipts. So I'll do a little bit of both just to get people a sense of how it works. We'll choose Alabama. We can type, or we can use the drop-down boxes here. So we'll just choose the first one. What was the period that I was there? So it shows me, I told the system I traveled from the 18th to the 24th. Those are the only days I can choose. And just to make it easy, I'm going to put it all against one project. Lodging, we'll put against lodging. Meals, I get reimbursed based on my per diem. Click Next. It shows me all my elements. If I did get breakfast because it came with the lodging or the government provided, I could uncheck these things. And then I would just put in my actual room rate, what my actual tax is, finish, and now it's created my expense report for me. So you can see my first and last day at 75%, the remainders, at the full amount there. And then I could add lines to that, that was processed based on per diem. So for instance, I'm sure that if I went to Alabama, I'm probably not driving there. I flew there. So I would go ahead and let's go ahead and put our airfare on here. So that's for that go live function. And I'll choose my airfare category. I could say that I paid for it, or maybe I used the company car, or it could be a personal item the company paid. I'll just say that I paid for it, and that flight cost $500. Click Save, adds it to my expense report. In addition, I also needed to drive to the airport. So we'll put some mileage on there, and it's 50 miles round trip. And you can see that it calculates the miles based on whatever the mileage rate is. And now I've got my expense line. So this was, just put United from IAD, and this was miles to IAD. And that's the process I would go through and save it. I could also attach any type of receipts. And then finally, once I'm done, submit that expense report. So that's the process on an expense report that I go through to get that expense into the system. So as I was typing that expense report was actually getting created inside the system. So if I go down, wherever the latest one was, you could see all the details of what was on that expense report there. All right, so we're going to cover one more thing today, and I'm going to cover just generation of an invoice, and we'll leave a few minutes for questions. Before I can generate the invoice, people have entered their labor, but we need to go ahead and process it, and that labor would get processed in what we call the time journal. So this is the place that I would run through to do that import. So I'm going to take that approved time, bring it into the system. So it's actually already in the system, but move it from the time and expense tables into labor distribution, calculate my labor distribution. Like I mentioned earlier, our integration with the payroll networks, ADP and Paychecks. I can generate subcontractor invoices here. So if I had subcontractors in our time in our system, this would turn it into a PO. And then this time, we would post it against, in this case, it would hit the general ledger, project ledger, resource ledger. And whether we do payroll in-house or outsource would be the flow from there. So now we've got that labor ready for billings. We've also we've got expenses ready for billings. The last element of cost is our indirect cost. So this is the place where indirects would get set up. This process is as simple or as complicated as your business. I'll cover just one pool to make it, to save some time here. So the first thing, there's 4 steps to my process. So step 1 is I define the rate structure. Step 2 is I identify how those rates get calculated. So what's in my pool, what's in my base. Once I've got that calculation, now I'm telling the system, how do I allocate those costs? So those costs that are accumulated, they're being allocated out to projects at both an actual rate and a provisional rate. So that system is going to take those costs, in this case it's tiered, so I've got my fringe that was calculated in step 1, a portion of it is coming into my overhead, and then I'm doing that allocation out to projects at both provisional and actual. And that provisional rate, go ahead and drop this down a little bit, I'm identifying what is that effective provisional rate by period. So the system, I can have my history of rates in here, both provisional rate and final rate. And then the system will also show what is my actual rates through time. So it'll give me that detail also from here. And then as those rates are posted, they're posted to both the general ledger and project ledger, and they're available for viewing and reporting. So I'll just go down to my chart of accounts, and what you'll see is my range of allocation accounts available to me. And when I drill into the allocation accounts, you'd see the detail. So I see the rate, I see the base in terms of the math, and then what was that total amount that was allocated out by project, department, and task. So the last piece of today's presentation is just generating the invoice. And as long as we have all those things set up properly, all these things are automated. So I run the create invoice function. I'm going to choose the project I'm going to run it for, the period. Once I say OK, it creates what we call an invoice proposal, which is a pre-invoice or an invoice worksheet. And this is the place that I'm going to review it and make sure that things are accurate. So let me go ahead and print 79 here. I think I've got both subcontract and direct labor on this one. So when I pull this up, I can choose how do I want to group it. So category group means type of expense. A category group plus labor type means my labor, I split it out from subcontract labor, direct labor, consultant labor, whatever your labor components are. Cost plus fee rolls all the indirects into the cost elements. Summarized by resource shows the person's name and labor category. By labor category, it just, in essence, hides the person's name and rolls all entries for that labor category together. And then roll up, and I won't go through the other ones, but I'll go ahead and preview it. So I preview it, and now I've got the details of current period and inception date. Let me go up to the header first. So up in the header, I've got information about the contract, and then below, I've got information about the expenses, current period and inception date. All my different cost elements. This one's a cost type, so it's got my indirects that are applied, my fee, and then in this case, withholding on that particular job. Invoices, export, also just because they're a report, Excel, PDF, and Word. And now once I've created it, I can send it for approval. So this would actually send this document out for approval to operations. And then finally, the last step is I post it. It becomes a posted document, and I can re-email or print this anytime I want. So We just covered a lot in an hour, and I realized that I actually went right up to the last minute because I want to cover a couple extra things. So we probably don't have time for questions, but I can see that there's a bunch of them on here. So what I'll say is that we'll reach out to you guys. I don't know, Damon, if there's... That's probably the easiest thing. Yeah, because we've got... if you are eating lunch at your desk, I hope you enjoyed lunch, but we want to go ahead and let people out on time. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And like Damon mentioned, we'd love to hear your feedback. How do we make this a better learning tool for folks evaluating the Microsoft solution? So have a wonderful day and a safe weekend, and we look forward to talking to you soon.